Hello and welcome to the Fact Finder video. This is probably, for the 100 level courses, the most important video that you watch and that you pay attention to and that you understand all of the details. It's still a 100 level course, so we're not going to dive into too much details here yet. You'll get some of the fun product stuff and the annuities 100 level course and all that, but here today we're just going to take it very easy because you're probably already doing some business in some line of business in the industry already. So my goal here is just simply to teach you how to do a little bit better job getting all of the facts and the figures and the feelings out of your client. And this is for basically a first appointment with the client during a 2-appointment process. So I generally run 2-appointment closes for annuities. The first appointment is all about getting the information, and we'll have another video on the whole first appointment, but this will be the main piece of the first appointment, and it's really important that you pay attention here. So I'm just going to kind of start with the basics. I always get on my lead sources, at the very least, a name and a phone number and which line of product that they're interested in. From there, I have to do generally all of the work. Typically, I don't get an address and I don't get a lot of the basic information, so you may have a leg up on me in collecting some of that, but I want to kind of reiterate here, when we're just meeting someone for the first time, usually I get the very, very basics: name, phone number, and what kind of line of business I'm there to talk to them about. So after that, we just hop right into it, and depending on your lead source, you can kind of navigate the kind of information that you want to collect first. Generally, I want to make sure I'm doing what the client wants me to do first in regards to helping them understand information or getting a quote or whatever it is their highest priority. I'm going to tailor the questions in that priority order to make sure that I'm able to answer that. And usually after I've asked 4 or 5 or 6 of those questions, any more questions I have on top of that, they're just going to give me because I'm already there. I'm the professional. They think I'm going to need this in my analysis for that product line. I may or I may not need that information for that particular product, but I do definitely need that to be able to come up with annuity recommendations and other lines of business. So if you aren't doing all of the lines of business, that's okay. You don't have to. You can always partner with someone like me that does all of the lines of business, because when you have all of the lines of business of a client, so everything from health insurance, life insurance, P&C, annuities and investments, and Medicare, and you just do all of it for a client, they're never going to leave you. Your retention rate and your persistency rate is so extremely high. Nobody else has the ability to go in through the back door and close something else that you didn't cover. So that's why I generally like to do it all for my clients. But you don't have to be a master at all of them. You just have to learn enough to get by for the majority of them, or partner with someone like me who does know enough to be able to do all of the rest of the pieces of the puzzle for your client. So let's hop into it here. I've got the name and I've got the phone number here. For a lot of folks, I need a lot more detail than that. When I call them, I obviously understand whether it's a male or a female. I do have that check mark box on here, just simply because if it is a gender neutral name, I want to make sure that if anybody is processing my paperwork, like my assistant or office staff, that they know male, female exists on there. Same with, and then, so one of the first things I do when I'm going through this, I've already told, and before I get into the fact finder, I've told the client I'm going to do the fact finder. I'm going to come up with some recommendations for you. So you'll learn that again in the first appointment, but we're just going to hop right into the fact finder here. So we're getting name, phone number, and then here right away I'm asking for date of birth. I'm asking for their emails, any additional phone numbers as well. So if I got a home number, I'm definitely going to want a cell phone number in this day and age. And then kind of what their employer is. I work with a lot of 403Bs in schools, so this fact finder on the PDF is tailored towards that line of business for me. You can tailor it towards your line of business. You can throw your company logo at the top of this fact finder and make it your own. This fact finder is been compiled over 100 different fact finders that I've looked at through the years. It's really important. I've condensed this down to one piece of paper, front and back, to acquire all of the information that we're going to need on the clients here, but then also our notes on the back about follow-up and communication, and the bottom portion is after the sale. So I do have an online version of this as well, and just make sure your security is super high so that if you are inputting confidential information in there, nobody else has the ability to get access to that important information. So I do have an online version and a paper version depending on how I'm meeting with the client here. So if it's in person, I generally like doing a piece of paper, and if it is over the phone or Zoom, I generally like doing the online version of that because I can type a little bit better than I can write. So that's the information. So as we're going through this, it is name, phone number, I've got the date of birth, which I'm going to get right away, and then all of the contact information, so other emails, other phone numbers, their address information, and then on the right hand side of this page, I'm getting the spouse information, I'm getting the kids, their full legal names, their dates of birth, because generally if we're going to do some piece of business on annuities, we're definitely going to need the beneficiary and contingent beneficiary information as well. So that's super important. And at the very top of the line, I write agent name. I'll put my name on here for the most part, but sometimes I pair up and work with other people, so I can put Tim and so on here, so I know that I'm working this jointly. Or if I have people in my downline and they need me to see this and I'm putting this in my file, I know that that's this person's client. So having your name on the piece of paper is helpful. The date, I always do put the year, because if you're going to be in business for many years, you'll get flustered after a couple of years with this, not understanding all of the policies you've written in which previous year. So important to put that full date and time on there, get all of the contact information, and then it's really all about getting their current employment information and past employment information for a couple of reasons here. So current information, I like to know where they're at, so their employer, the district, the school, on the teacher side of the world. When I'm working with health insurance people, what is their job? Why are they looking to me for health insurance? Are they a realtor and self-employed? Are they a small business owner and self-employed? Why are they coming to me? And so I'm getting their employer, how long they've been there, and this how long they've been there is important because after a period of time when they do switch jobs, so-and-so is there for 20 years, we know that there's going to be a large 401k or IRA balance, some sort of retirement accounts, and the length of time that they've been in these accounts. It's also important for pension calculations, so I do a lot of those and help people out understanding their pension in the teacher market or in the government districts, federal employees, FERS as well. So once you understand the basics to these pensions, it's really easy to be able to give people a pension report. So it's important to know their years of service for that, but then also for those rollover opportunities in the future. Previous occupations here, this is paramount. I want to know all the other jobs they've had, all of the other jobs that they've had retirement accounts at, and what they've done with that money since then. So while I'm not directly asking here in this employment information section how much money they have and that sort of stuff, it's very important that I make a note of they worked at John Deere for 15 years, they worked at so-and-so for 15 years, because I am going to ask them here in about a minute what other information, of course, is going to be important for the annuity selling is what you have in that 401k, what you have in that 403b, how long were you contributing to it, have you done anything with it since then? So I'm going to get to all of those questions, so it's important that you grab all of the other previous occupations for both the client and the spouse. The other reason I asked for the kids up top here, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I want to make sure that I'm touching on all of the pieces and why they're important. The kids and their dates of birth for beneficiary, of course, I mentioned, but then also for other sales. So if they don't have them covered on their health insurance or their life insurance yet, we're going to want to make note of that and be able to use that as an opportunity to help them make sure that we're doing the right thing. The other thing is we're looking at surrender periods and periods where they're going to need income replacement. So like term life insurance products, we're taking a look at, well, how old are their kids? If we already have that information complete on the fact finder this first time, it's going to be very, very helpful for us to make those case design recommendations when we get to that stage. The other side is the spouse's employer, their previous positions, all of that information as well, so you can see that there. And then I'm going to get right to their income and their expenses here. So here's how I create the cash flow statement. So I want to get all of their incomes, and it's very, very important that you talk to them about all of their incomes and you don't miss any. A lot of times you'll be able to talk to someone that has rental properties or a side business, or maybe you're talking to them on the lead source through the main line of business and they have another job, or maybe this was their other job and they've got a full-time job making even more money somewhere else. You want to know all of those details to come up with a complete income statement. So I want to know all sources of income and how long we expect them to last. So are these going to last until retirement? Are you planning any career changes potentially? You want all of the detail on the income side so that when we add this up for the client and create that cash flow statement, we're creating something super accurate. We also want to know the pay frequency. If we're setting up different products for them, we're going to want to know how often they're paid and when they're paid, so that'll be important to grab that. And then you see that total estimated expenses. Some people know down to the detail that they have $3,000 worth of expenses or $4,500 worth of monthly expenses, and that's terrific. I'll write that down. Usually the people that have that total are pretty accurate. And then creating the cash flow is very easy to say, okay, I've got their income and now I've got their expenses. Some people don't know their expenses that well, and you kind of have to have them add up their mortgage or rent, their cars, their utilities, all of the big pieces of the puzzle, and all of the discretionary spending that they think they're doing as well. And that's how we're going to get that total. So you may have to be a little bit more of a consultant in that role to get them to go to the next level of, I need this to be as accurate as I can. Maybe let's pull up a bank statement, or maybe let's pull up something that'll help us get that total estimated expenses. And the future question of that comes in to where we need to get, what are your estimated expenses in retirement? Are we going to have that house paid off? Are we going to have those cars paid off? Are we buying a camper? Are we traveling the world? Are we taking yacht cruises once a year? What exactly are we doing in retirement, and what do our expenses look like at that point, so that when we map out this cash flow statement, it's current, but we'll also be able to project that out into the future for their retirement. So the other thing here is debt. I definitely want them to understand where they're at for debt. And I want to understand it here for myself as well to be able to do the planning, but I want to hit home on, we need to figure out a way to get them out of any sort of high interest debt. Now, it depends on what we're trying to accomplish for them. If we're trying to get them out of debt completely, or just the high interest debt, and it's okay to keep a mortgage at 3% or whatever, a car at 0% financing and that sort of stuff. We'll figure out what's best and most appropriate for them in the case design, but for us here, let's focus on the main things here. So I ask them about all kinds of debt that are typical for consumers, and so I ask them about the mortgage. I want to know the balance that's left on it. So is it 150 grand left on the house? Their payment, is it $1,100 a month? I want to know both the balance and the payment for all of these categories. So house, cars, credit cards, student loans, furniture marts, personal loans, anything that you can think of in your local area that's going to be important. Here in Omaha, Nebraska, we have Nebraska Furniture Mart, and it's huge. It's 0% interest usually for 3 years on different products like mattresses and couches, and it just seems about half of Omaha has an account at that place. So I like to get that here. You may have something like that in your local market that you want to make sure that you get on this report here as well. Once we've got that, we're halfway to getting the net worth statement. So the rest of that is going to be all of their assets. So very specifically for teachers, I'm going to ask about 403Bs. For government employees like police, firefighters, they're going to have a 457, so you might scratch that out and write that if that's your market. 401ks are going to be everybody in that private sector working for an employee. And then IRAs, Roths, and we're going to hop into the details and the weeds on these type of things. I'm going to ask them for an account statement. I'll grab a picture with my cell phone if they'll allow me to do that. And I just ask nicely. You know, that's usually a pretty easy conversation is, do you have a copy of that last account statement or the last quarterly earnings report on it? And they'll just give you that information. And so then you take a picture with your phone, you can see the asset allocation, you can see the account number, you can see the 800 customer service number, you get all of the details with that. And so it's super important. Otherwise, if they don't have that available, it's not readily accessible. We're just trying to get the main pieces of the puzzle. So what company is it with? Because that's who we're going to have to call. We can Google that after the fact if we need to. How much is in there approximately? So is it 10 grand or 100 grand, or kind of give us the closest estimate that you've seen recently. I put the owner here because sometimes we have a husband and a wife and we need to categorize which one's which for tax purposes on this, because remember, it's all tied to people's social security numbers. These qualified retirement accounts are. So that's super important for us to get. The fees that are going on here, so all 401ks are going to have fees, all IRAs are going to have fees. So we want to know what they're actually doing on these. We can, in the asset allocation column off to the right, we can also put any other side notes we need on there as far as management fees, 401k fees, all of that sort of stuff. We can type that in there as well. I like to get the policy or account number on there right away so I know what I'm talking about and what I'm working with. And so when I call to transfer money later on in the future, we've already got that on this one piece of paper and all the details are here. And the contribution amount. So if they're currently doing 10% of their salary or $100 a month or whatever it is, I'm going to map that out in their net worth and future statements here that you'll see on the case design video here of if they continue doing what they're currently doing. So it's important that I grab those contributions, because if they're maxing out their Roth at $6,000 a year, I want to put that in there for the next 10 years or however long until their retirement is, to make sure that I'm accurate reflecting that dollar amount of contributions plus an estimated growth rate for the whole net worth so that we can get that full complete picture. So important to get their contributions there. Asset allocation, I'm going to chat with you in a minute. I am securities licensed. I know most of you guys are not securities licensed. That's okay. You do not need a securities license to understand asset allocation. I'll break it down for you real briefly and easy to understand. So when you're looking at a statement, it has basically a circle graph on it, or if it doesn't have a circle graph, it'll break down in that very first statement page or two what their split is between equities and fixed income and cash. And so all you're trying to get is an understanding of what percentage of this person's portfolio is in stocks, is in risk investments that go up and down with the market. And then the rest of it, the bonds, the fixed instruments, the treasury bills, the cash, all of that sort of stuff, the safe money that's not going up or down, it's just going up, but it's going up very, very slowly. I want to know that piece of the puzzle as well, and that's their asset allocation. We'll review this a little bit more in the risk tolerance video, but for now, I just want, is it 50-50? Is it 80-20 in equities? What is the split of that? And if they don't know and they're amenable to doing a quick three-way call with the carrier and you're there, just say, oh, we'll just give them a quick call. It's no problem. I want you to understand what you're in and I'll help you and figure out if that's even appropriate for you. Does that make sense? And you just get their buy-in, then you call the 800 number and you do a quick conference call. I'm not going to dig into the weeds too much on that right now because we're still in the 100 level courses, but I think it's important to know that you have the ability to get any of the answers to these questions if you've built up good rapport with the client, if they trust you, if they understand that you're there to help them with their overall financial planning. If you put that in their brain prior to doing this fact finder, you're going to have a lot of success in actually completing all of the pieces of the puzzle. Or, if the client doesn't know, which is totally okay, most people don't know their asset allocation in their 401k, we'll just call the company real quick and ask them. Now, if they have an hour hold time, I definitely don't recommend doing that, but it's usually 2 or 3 minutes, and you can just put the volume on low while you're talking to the client about the other pieces of the puzzle and then bring it back up when you get someone on the phone here. So I'm going to go over all of their qualified retirement assets. And again, in the qualified retirement assets, I'm not just talking about the pre-tax accounts, I'm talking about the post-tax and Roth accounts as well. And we'll go over that in the distribution tax video here. And so I want you to understand just real briefly right now, 403Bs and 457s are for different types of public employees. So 403Bs are teachers, 457s are firefighters, police, courts, judges, stuff like that. 401ks are going to be private companies here. And so knowing who you're dealing with kind of directs you to which one of those are you going to ask. Then you're also going to ask them about IRAs, individual retirement accounts. Maybe they've already moved money from a previous employer into an IRA. We definitely need that information. And the company name and the value and all of the pieces of the puzzle of that. So make sure you're just following that line all the way out. and then Roths as well. So, and you'll see in the video which is better, IRAs or Roth IRAs. And they're both good, and they both do something for the right individual. So it's up to us to make the appropriate recommendation. So you'll see that on the pre-tax or post-tax video. But I want to collect here in the fact finder and not make any judgments, not make any recommendations to the client, just factually get everything down that they have available to us or is willing to give me for the information. Other non-qualified assets here. So this can be, and I'll get specific in my notes in this section here, is it a checking account at their bank? Because I've seen clients that have $150,000 to $250,000 in their checking account at the bank earning next to nothing. And I've also seen them have brokerage accounts at TD Ameritrade or Ed Jones or Merrill Lynch. And if you come across that, there's real easy ways that we can help them still have the same liquidity that's in there and do all of that, but also give them some safety and that sort of stuff. So we just need here, this other non-qualified account is the big money, and I'm also asking about their savings. So after I ask those questions about their other non-qualified investments and their savings account, so I know how much money they have to cover emergency reserves and that sort of stuff, and I followed that line out there as well, I'm going to ask them the details behind that. So why do you have that dollar amount in your savings account? And I've seen people, it's $0 to $250,000, a big wide range here. And some of the people that have $250,000 have no business having that much money in their checking or emergency reserve account. And I've seen people with, $1,000 that really should have $30,000 or $40,000 set aside for big emergencies and that sort of stuff. So I've seen it kind of both ways. We want to get an idea of, of course we know how much they're making. So if they're making $100,000 or $10,000 a month or whatever it is, they need a good emergency reserve, especially if they're a business owner that needs to buy inventory or this or that, and they have reasons for that. Otherwise, the people that have huge stability in their jobs, so people like teachers or government workers or people that are generally at that place of employment for a long period of time, have steady employment, have steady paychecks, they don't necessarily need quite as large of a balance. And so it's all up to the individual person, of course, but I want to get their reasoning while I'm there sitting in person with them about that. You may uncover other needs by asking that question of, well, yeah, we are thinking about buying another house, and that's why we've got the extra savings in there. Super important that we get the details of why that money's in there, because if we're thinking we're going to come back with a recommendation for them and to use some of that money, and they go, oh no, the purpose of that was, you do not want to learn that in the presentation. You need to learn that here in the fact finder. That's part of why we do this fact finder, is to learn everything about the client up front, whether you're a Medicare agent or a final expense or term life agent, or you do health insurance or many of the other lines. You still want all of these details on the client to be able to come up with your normal recommendation, but then also all of these other ones that you might not be doing, like annuities yet. So that's the purpose of all of that. Then I'm going to dig into their insurances here. So it's super important. I left a blank line on my PDF here, so if that's what you're looking at, there's a blank line. I usually leave it for health insurance. Sometimes I do ancillary insurances in there, but I want to know, whose health insurance they're going off of. Is it the husband's work? Are they both on that one? Is he on his and she's on hers? Do they not have health insurance? I want to know that. I want to know how much they're paying. I want to know the company behind it. I want to know their deductible, their max out of pocket, and their copays. And same with disability insurance. What do they have through work? What do they have outside of work? Same with life insurance. What do they have through work? What do they have outside of work? What are the death benefits? What are the premiums that they're paying? How long is it going to last? You want all of those details in every section of those insurances. Not because you have to sell them and you plan on any of that. You just want to make sure that what they're currently doing in their financial plan is the best thing for them to be doing right now. They're probably paying some money for some of these products through work, outside of work, whatever it is. You're just giving them a recommendation of, yes, that's appropriate for you. Yes, that's a good price for you. If not, I'll come back and I'll tell you that there's better opportunities and this is what they look like and this is why I'd recommend that. So it's real important on this initial fact finder that you're grabbing all of those details in the weeds. And again, if people don't have these answers, if they don't know what the death benefit is, but they know it's Primerica, you can just Google 800 number for Primerica or customer service number, and then three-way column, this is the client so-and-so, they'll verify their date of birth and their address and whatever, and then they'll give you, yep, it was a 10-year term, started 9 years ago, it's got 1 year left, and then the premiums skyrocket. Those are the details you need in here to be able to sell some of the other ancillary products that you might not be selling yet. So it's super important, again, that we grab all of that. And I've separated those out for both the client and the spouse because I want you to get that detail on both of them. For everyone that is over age 50, I'm going to ask them if they have long-term care insurance yet. And I say it that way because I very specifically want to understand and to plant the seed that it could be important for them in the future. And of course, most people are going to say no, that's no problem at all. Our opportunity here is looking for needs from some of the other parts of this fact finder here, but also just bringing up what their thoughts are on long-term care. Did they have an experience with their parents with it? And so I'm trying to get that out of them. Of course, if they do have a policy, we're just going to notate all of the information with that. What other insurance policies do they have? Do they have a critical illness or hospital indemnity or an AFLAC plan or a Christian ministry plan, or what other plans do they have here? And I'm trying to get that in the last line here. So I grab all of that information, and then I'm going to ask them when they want to retire, and of course I'll put the numbers together and make some recommendations, and we'll show them what that looks like in the future. But before I do any of that, if it were up to you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, and you had a bunch of money already, and unbeknownst to the planning that we've done already, you had enough money, when would you like to retire? Do you love your job and want to retire at 67 or 70 or 75? What are you thinking? Or are you trying to get out as soon as possible, but making sure that you're going to be financially set? What is your priority? What's your goal? Write that number down. That's going to be important. And then we can come up with all of your guaranteed lifetime income streams in retirement. So that's going to be Social Security for just about everybody. May also be a pension for some folks as well, depending on what industries they're in. And so we're just going to say, at age 65, or whatever the clients say that they want to retire at, I need to come up with their Social Security calculation and estimate. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you how to get the accurate number out of that. It's real easy. And then the dollar amount that they're going to get at that age. This is going to be important because in their cash flow statement that I'll show you here later on, basically we're going through and we're saying employment, year 2021, 22, 23, and then in year 2024, they're now switching over to Social Security. They're now switching over to pension, and we're saying at that specific age. So we want to write that down right here, right now on the fact finder to make sure that we're following this cash flow statement for the client as accurately as possible to make sure that we're going to give them the best numbers and best recommendations based on those numbers. And that's basically it for the front page of this fact finder. Again, I'm not going to go too much into the weeds on some of the other stuff because there is going to be a whole first appointment area where some of this fact finder is touched on there too. But I do want to touch on the back page of this fact finder. So immediately after going over this information, thank the client for being so open about their financial situation. This will really allow you to create a great plan for them. And now what you'd like to do is put this case together for them, put all of the recommendations together, and then come back to them at a time that works great for them to present that information. And so this is how I do it for the 2-appointment close. Right then and there, I flip it over and I say, okay, so can I get back to you guys same day, same time next week? And people are creatures of habit. Usually that works best. Depending on your process. Now, if you're trying to get everything done as quick and as soon as possible, usually 2 or 3 days is enough time. Maybe they're going to have hesitations that push you off for a month or two, but I generally like to do this in my industry about 1 week exactly. In that way I can plan for my lead flow in consistency with these first and second appointments with the clients here that we're having. So then I write on the first appointment notes, of course, the date and the time and the location, whether it's a Zoom or a phone call or at their house or at my office, whatever it is. And then all of the notes here that I'm thinking immediately after the presentation. If you want them to have a little bit more buy-in, let them see you write. come up with an illustration for Medicare, come up with an illustration for life insurance, come up with recommendations on retirement planning, help them analyze when they can retire early. You want to put all of those things down here, whatever the goals and recommendations that you're going to come back to them are, and then you've got next meeting this same thing pulled up and say, we're going to talk about A, B, C, D, all of the things that we mentioned here. So you've got accountability. And then the second appointment, you're already writing the date and time and location here so that you've got it locked in. You'll also map it from here, this fact finder, into your personal calendar or whatever system you're using to keep yourself accountable and on schedule. So you'll map that over. Here is also a great opportunity to get some referrals. So we'll touch on this more, but I want to mention right now, at this point in the fact finder, you've gotten all of the information. You're going to come back and do a good job planning for them. I like to ask people right here, who else do you know that's somewhat in your situation, whether it's a teacher, other teachers, or whatever their situation is, realtor for other realtors, who do you know that could benefit from all of these recommendations that I'm going to help you out with? Who do you know? And just get a name and a number. You can ask them if they'd be so kind as to text this person, let them know. I might give them a call to make sure that I can help them on these things too. You think there might be a benefit there, etc. But that's a good opportunity. The other opportunity is after you come back and do your presentation and you've already provided value, that's another opportunity. So you can do it right before you come back and right after this first one. Sometimes I've gotten referrals right after this first meeting, and by the second meeting, and I'm coming back closing and providing real value, I've already contacted those referrals and they're so appreciative. Now I'm working with their friends. Of course they're going to do business with me after I make my recommendations because I'm already working with some of their friends. So that's why I try and do it immediately and right away. That's the best place for me to get referrals. I highly recommend you think about where to add that in your process to make sure that you're getting some in there as well, and then have them send the text that preempts the call for you, so it's a positive, easy phone call. We're going to skip over the third appointment notes. We'll get to that. But I do have a line here, and I think it's super important for you guys to have this in your own practice. This goes a little bit back to business optimization, but I'm going to include it here because it's actually on my fact finder, both the paper version and the online version of what I'm actually selling. So here, let's say as an example, we've already done the presentation and we're going to do the easiest sale in the world. It's $100 a month into their 403B, or it's a $20 a month term life insurance policy, or whatever it is, so that you have the easiest process for getting this business entered into paper or e-apps or whatever, so that it makes it super easy. So when you actually go back on the second meeting and you close the business, you're just grabbing a signature on the correct paperwork and all of that. But here, I'm going to get everything that I need to do to enter the sale. And again, this probably comes on the second appointment, so you don't need to grab that here on a first appointment. But I'm going over that on this topic here because we're talking about the fact finder. So I will get the company and product name, the dollar amount for monthly flow or a transfer. If I've got the statement, sometimes when we do transfers into security business, I need a copy of their last statement, their bank account, name, routing, account number, all the details there, how conservative, balanced, moderate, or aggressive they are, or their risk tolerance. Sometimes I put the risk tolerance score on there, and all of the details I need to enter a sale, like driver's license, height, weight, medications, etc. I grab all of that here on the fact finder to make sure that if my business is running at 100% capacity, I do the first meeting and grab all of the details I possibly can. After the second meeting, so now my person has prepared the packet for me here, the second meeting I grab these details. Someone else can take this fact finder, do all of the paperwork or e-app for me, and then me and the client just have to sign it. It makes the whole process really easy. It allows you to do way more of these appointments and focus on the pieces of the puzzle that are important, and that lets someone else do, oh, this was with so-and-so company, it's that product, these are how I I do my sales. So when I pass this off to my assistant as an example, they're going to be able to understand how to do everything for me because I've already mapped out my process on doing that. And so I've integrated that into my fact finder here because this is the main piece of the puzzle when we're working with the client, where all the information is, including the sale. Of course, you'll have underneath that the applications and pieces of business that you've done and the policies and confirmations once it's sold, and you'll have some other stuff in their file. But this is always the top piece of paper for me because it records both our times that we've met and talked last, so our most recent communications, all of the sales in a quick, easy format for me to understand, and everything from social security number, driver's license, address, and their contact information on this as well. So that's how I run through my fact finder. Again, you can edit this and adopt this. So if there's a couple things in your line of business that you need added to this, real easy to make those changes. You can reach out to me if you don't have an editable version of this or Adobe to be able to do that. And then you can just slap your company logo in the margin, that top 1.5 inches here if you're doing paper, or you can put it on the online fact finder. Not that they're going to see the online fact finder, that's just for your side. Out of that online fact finder, you will present something that is a better format quality for these folks. So I want you to know, if you're doing the online, they're not going to see this, but if you're doing a paper one, it's nice to have your business card and your fact finder and everything logoed out to your local market. And so we can do that for you to make sure that this looks like a high quality fact finder when you're doing it in person with them. Thanks for watching this fact finder video. I think that's all the important details that you need to be covering. Of course, we'll go into some more details on the first appointment, but if you are covering all of these things and you come to me and say, hey, I think it'd be appropriate to move a portion of their money into an annuity, what do you think? I'm going to ask you for this fact finder. I'm going to want it completed to the best of your and the client's ability so that I can understand where they are in their financial process and everything done to its completeness so that we can make appropriate recommendations. If we're missing income or expenses or half the retirement assets or something, it's not appropriate. I'm not a transactional type of person. I also don't commission chase, so I think it's really important that we need all of the details to come up with the best plan. I think it's really important that you guys understand and ask every client all of this information because this is your inventory. I talked about it in the business optimization video, but without fact finders on every client, whether it's a sale or it's a no sale or they no-showed yet or whatever it is, you need one of these on every client, and because you can make these more complete as time goes on, but you want all of the information in one place, easy to look at, easy to understand and comprehend and digest. And once you've mastered this fact finder in the one-page form here, you'll be able to use that for other clients, other advisors in your hierarchy. It gives you something to map out for the rest of this that really looks good, the format's nice, and everybody kind of understands where all the pieces of the puzzle are. Otherwise, I've seen 7 pages and everybody has mismatching fact finders. It gets real tough to manage organizations and different lines of business and clients like that. And so if you keep it all and add all of these details to just a one piece of paper, it's going to be so much more effective and efficient, and you'll have better control over your calendar and your leads and your inventory by doing this. So definitely take note of this video and get all of that information from each and every client to the best of your ability. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you, and I definitely mean you, at the top and on the next video.